Hi, and I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your stories. And I'm a podcaster myself, and as an Asian American, I was thinking very deeply about establishing trust with our interviewees, especially from Black and Brown and Asian communities, and thinking about how do we think of using stories, but not in a way that's so heavily into trauma porn or the unicorn effect, like the success stories, but to have something that's more balanced and to at least honor the interviewees who are using their labor and trust to share their stories and to have it out there. So I wonder for all three of you, like, how do you navigate those relationships and making sure that you are doing your best, to have your interviews feel safe in sharing their stories with you. So I just kind of want to get your take on that. Thank you.
That's something that we're very conscious of, that in our podcasting, particularly in change agents, and ideally what we are working with our journalists on is creating a relationship, and not like you're my best friend and we're gonna go hang out, but so that you're trusted, so that first just have a conversation, right, where you, the interviewer journalist, is actively listening about that person. Not, don't tell me about the worst day of your life or what's it like having been discriminated against as an Asian American, but this is a person to person. And I've found that when you feel there's a connection that you have with that person, they relax, you relax, and then it is a conversation, and then you can find out where they're comfortable. I mean, one of the things, once comfortable, then ask for our format, we ask early on is like, so given blah, 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 what's something that you would like to talk about, or you'd like to see covered, or you'd like to hear about that? We found that's a way that everybody then connects into a very thoughtful way, because most of us aren't asked that. What do you care about? What do you want to hear? So just not knowing that you're not looking for the trauma porn or the unicorn, right? Then it's just, there's a whole another area that you get to explore as in the pre-interview and in the interview, that the person feels comfortable enough that he or she or they is just talking to you. So
I'll go quick and I'll okay. So that's as a person who worked in journalism education for 10 years and who, like, education is like part of, I think, who I am in so many ways. One of the most important things, I think, is to just be upfront and straightforward and share with people why it is you're talking to them. So many times in journalism, you're not like, you just go up and start talking to someone and you make all these assumptions that you think they know what you want, they think you think they know what the product's going to look like, and that's just a really weird imbalance, right? So I think being intentional about, here's what I'm interested in doing, I want to be very clear about what you do and don't have control over. Here's how I'd like what I'd like to talk about. How do you feel about that? And really gauging along the way, and just kind of being, I think it's actually being responsible. And I think we have for a very long time not taught that sense of responsibility and accountability, not just to who the audience is, but to who our sources are. Because we do so much harm that way, and you see it all the time. So I think being very straightforward, being very upfront about why them, right? And also, breaking some of those rules. Oh, I don't want to share questions in advance. Oh, I don't want you to take a look at what is the point of that when you're talking to ordinary people about their lived experience and their lives? I think if you want trust, you have to earn it.
I'll just add this as I pass it over. And in that trust, right, and that intentionality, then you're showing them that you respect them, right? That you're not just here just to take something away. So, yeah.
And then also being very mindful of your questions. Definitely open-ended questions, but even thinking about how your questions might influence the way certain people think of answering. And so when I was interviewing the participants of my folded map project, clearly it's about disparity and segregation. But I didn't just, ask them, so, how's segregation working for you? No, I just, And I didn't want to have it just all, academic talk, but realizing the personal narrative will naturally speak to these large issues, just asking them questions. How would you describe your neighborhood? What do you feel is missing in your neighborhood? What do you feel your neighborhood has that Chicago needs? So just really thinking about questions in that way. And also, sometimes you are going to be covering stuff that others could view as, just damage-centered. But in doing that, it's a way to have a balance. My project that I did called Belonging, which is narratives from Black and brown teenagers about the places that they feel like they don't belong in the city. And so, of course, that was the issue I wanted to highlight. But in talking about that, I also had to honor and give just as much room and space to have them share what they create as a result of feeling like they don't belong. The many liberatory spaces that they create because they feel left out. Now, if I didn't include that, it could look very different. But, because they feel like they don't belong in certain places downtown, they create these amazing spaces, dance groups, all kinds of things. And so you have to amplify that just as much as kind of the damage-centered focus, if you will.
So we got time for maybe one more question. All right.
Hi, I think this is really like eye-opening and inspiring for me. So I just curious about how do you choose the people who are going to tell the story? How do you decide which story is necessary to be told? Yeah, and also because people from you have your own communities and connections, so there still might be people outside your network. How do you connect these kind of people?
Yeah. You're like, you go right. I'll take that question. I think that's a great and important, it's a great question because it points to the importance of intentionality. So everything we do, as unlimited as media access and media can seem, it's also limited, right? So with Our Stories, Our World, we had 6 episodes that we could afford to create. Public health, public safety, public education, 2 of each. And the goal that I was lucky enough to work with Mareva, who knows the communities around her and around Chicago very well. And we could pick people with disparate perspectives on those very important topics. And so we really tried to show that if you have and I'll point for public safety, right? So public safety, Vanessa Wesley, who's here with us this evening, right? A retired police officer. And then we have another, Tainetta Hill Muhammad, who is on the opposite end of the spectrum. She's an abolitionist. So, and yet when you listen to their stories side by side, thanks to Andrea's sort of deft questioning, because we really believe that the questions that you ask do have consequences, and you have to be intentional about what you are doing because you're not a neutral force in the people's world that you interview. You start to understand the threads that connect them, not just the issues that divide them. And I think being, you can tell everybody's story. Everybody has something, but I think you have to know the scope of what work you can accomplish, and then just continue to build deeper and richer tapestries of narrative.